Dr. Moriarty,
Here.
Mrs. Roberts,
Here.
Powers,
Here.
Mrs. Russell,
Here.
Mrs. Pritchett.
Yes, Madam Chair. I saw on the news yesterday that President Trump was passing some knowledge to the Department of Education about prayer in schools. And I was just wondering if any one from the district had heard anything or if there was any follow-up to that.
Nothing officially out by way of the State Department of Education, but once we receive something, staff will review it and see what is allowable and not allowable and see if we can bring something forward to the board.
Okay, thank you.
Have to read this little title to the improvement. Where appropriate. Statements from others not present. Up, you'll have 3 minutes. State your name. Go to the back one. When you're done, we'll give you a form to fill out.
I got the form. Good afternoon. I've lost my voice, so this is not my usual speaking voice. I am Misty Connolly, and I live here in Martin County, and I have 3 students attending Crystal Lake Elementary and 2 high school students at South Fork High School. And I'm glad I made it here because the weather was not cooperative. But I'm here to talk to you about volleyball, which is one reason why I don't have a voice, because the Bulldogs took the Conch Championship this past weekend for South Fork High School, and I'm one of their biggest cheerleaders. I'm actually here to talk about boys volleyball. So with approximately 63 public middle and high school schools in Palm Beach County School District, our neighbors give students and parents a lot of choices, and they all have boys volleyball. Even though we could have made that switch as a family to Palm Beach County schools, we chose to stay in our community. We chose to stay in Martin County. Vouchers in private schools are a big part of the decline of enrollment in all public schools across the state. And now the Florida High School Athletic Association has amended the law that allow private school student athletes to participate in sports not offered at their own school by either attending a public school or forming an agreement with another private school to play. But what this really also means is that our students can change from our public schools to private schools to play. And again, our family was made that offer, and we chose to stay in Martin County. There are approximately 239 men's volleyball colleges, and most of those teams are found on the eastern side of the United States. Men's volleyball scholarships are offered at the D1, D2, and NIAI colleges. But some of the most impressive colleges that our students would maybe aspire to, like Stanford, Princeton, MIT, Harvard, and UCLA, offer boys and men's volleyball. These are amazing opportunities for our students' futures. We are now in the recruiting process for my son, and there are many other boys that travel up to 2 hours south just to play. But it is an elitist sport, and if you don't have money, you don't get to play. And so the only opportunity that a lot of our local kids would ever have is to play at a middle school or high school. And I think they should be afforded that opportunity. I think that you guys need to make sure that this county, though small, is mighty and offers some of those programs that our competing schools and counties are offering.
And Madam Chair, Superintendent Maine, members of the school board, my name is Heather Platt. I serve as the Director of Professional Learning. Thank you for having me here today to talk about the strategic plan and scorecard. My presentation this afternoon is centered around our strategic plan and the scorecard process, two tools that will guide our district's path forward. This work builds on the foundation that was laid last year as we move into the next phase. The strategic plan moving forward takes the input that we received when we engaged deeply with our stakeholders to understand their priorities, concerns, and aspirations for our students and schools. The discovery phase informed the development of our strategic plan. We engaged students, families, staff, and community partners through surveys, focus groups, and collaborative sessions. Their voices shaped the foundation of our work. The insights from this data helped us identify areas where we are strong and areas where we still need to grow. It also reinforced the importance of aligning our strategic direction with the lived experiences and the expectations from our community. From this input, 5 strategic themes emerged and are the pillars of our strategic plan. As you will see today, these are not just aspirational, they are actionable and measurable. These themes continue to guide our work as we refine our strategic plan and will be the lens through which we evaluate our goals, our actions, and our progress. To share more about our progress on the strategic plan and scorecards and where we are headed, I would like to introduce you to Kathy Oropalo from Studer Education. You're welcome.
Good afternoon, board members. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to share the process that we're working on with Studer Education and Martin County in our partnership. I'm Kathy Oropalo. I'm a director, leader, coach for Studer Education. I work with districts all over the country, primarily starting at the executive level and then cascading organizationally all the way through the system from the boardroom to the classroom. Studer Education is a company that works side-by-side organizations to help establish, accelerate, and hardwire the necessary changes to create a culture of performance excellence. We help create better alignment and consistency of leadership practices, engaged employees, and working toward common goals at the highest levels of service. And finally, we address the needs of the entire organization in a way that's focused and driven by results. And the work that I'm going to share with you today is a little bit about where we are as a result of having a completed strategic plan. One of the first steps that we do is we try to develop organizational alignment. And as you know, in many organizations, people are siloed and they work in separate areas. But the idea is when we have alignment, when we have people moving in the same direction with a clear strategic direction, a clear focus, and a clear understanding of expectations, we can accelerate results and work together to achieve those results. Studer uses an evidence-based leadership execution framework. It's unique. Many times strategic plans are developed and they sit on a shelf. This is about really operationalizing a strategic plan in a way that's meaningful and that actually accomplishes what's in that 5-year plan. So if you'll notice in the plan, we focus on aligned goals that have to do with aligned measures as well. So this is a measurable plan. We align leader development to achieve results. So we're doing some leadership development around always actions and behaviors that indicate a high level of success and a high level of efficiency. And we also work with aligned processes that help us identify the bright spots and also the areas in need of improvement, where we work with short cycles of improvement over time in order to measure and know what progress is being made and how to make adjustments as a result of that. And we align timing, talent, and resources in a way that helps us achieve results. In addition to the execution framework, we have the 9 principles, and these are the leadership behaviors that we work with leaders on. In particular, I think one of the things that's unique about this is that we really focus on helping leaders understand the moves that are going to get them to where they want to go in terms of their goals, their actions, and their results. And we have a saying, people first, culture, strategy, in that order, so that people can begin, we start and we enter the work through making sure we're engaging people in the process. We want to have shared ownership in the process. So I'll highlight just a couple of these that I think are really important. Measure the important things. In today's education, we have what I call the Costco clearinghouse of data. And so narrowing that data down and really understanding, those pieces of data aligned to what you want to accomplish is really more efficient, and it helps people understand expectations and work towards that. It also helps us measure it over time so that we know we're making progress. The other is commit to excellence. It's about having high standards of practice and encouraging others to come from a place of service in their work. And then finally, building a culture around service and aligning behaviors to goals and values. Those are really highlighting some of the work that we're engaged in right now. The other thing that we try to do is, here's a portrait of your district. Looks like many districts around the country, but it's a good visual to see, like, why do we create a strategic plan? What's the purpose of the strategic plan? So if you look at the top, we're really saying, what are we trying to accomplish in the next 5 years? How are we supporting our families, our students? And then as we work, we begin to cascade that work down. And one of the things you'll hear about tonight when we get down to the district and in the department level is an organizational scorecard that allows us to have an annual plan to do that. And then as that cascades down, we engage leaders at the site level and at the building level, and our administrators also align their goals to some of the overall priorities. And finally, in the classroom and at the school level with our grade level teams, our PLCs, we're all working again towards that same goal. So this is a good view of what we mean from the boardroom to the classroom. When I entered the picture, we had a strategic plan that had those strategic themes. But one of the things we wanted to do was make sure that we had some coherence around some of the levers that were really important to Martin County. So we looked at the Florida leadership standards. We wanted to make sure they're visible in the plan. We looked at the superintendent's evaluation and your board goals. We wanted to make sure that was visible. And also the idea of accreditation and those requirements for accreditation. So part of the work that we did was to make sure you could see a clear line through those things as we move forward. We also engaged lead teams that helped us get the work done, but they didn't just own the work. They did some of the heavy lifting, and then we received input from the rest of the leadership group, the executive team and the leaders, to get feedback to make sure that the goals that were chosen were really the ones that were really important and were the high priority for the district. So you'll see this idea of lead teams working also with the scorecard as we move forward, helping us set some goals around those broad goals, and then also helping us set strategic actions and aligning those measures so that we have that. And there's many people in this room that I'm grateful for because they are also part of that decision-making process and doing some of that hard work right now. So what is a strategic plan? And I want to share with you, and many of you might know what it is because you have experience with it, but I want to contrast that with the scorecard so that there's a clear understanding of what it is. Most strategic plans are about 5 years goals, and they have a mission, a vision, and goals. And those goals are approved by folks like you, the board. A strategic plan isn't everything, but it is a product of informed decision-making by a group who are engaged stakeholders in a disciplined process. So the feedback that you receive from stakeholders is really important in creating a strategic plan so that it becomes a comprehensive plan and not just a plan that's done in one place or another. It's not about just one idea, one initiative, or one perspective. It's an organizational, long-term set of overarching goals led by the district's mission, vision, and values. And it sets a strategic direction for the district and serves as a guiding framework for all decisions and planning across the system. It's not a set of rigid requirements that can't respond to changes in the organization or the environment. So it is a living document if we do this well. Some of the strategic theme pieces that were created as the final pillars of the strategic plan are building a community of adult learners who support student outcomes, positive learning and working environment, future readiness, deliberate data-driven use of resources, and stakeholder engagement and community collaboration. And here are the goals that align, or the definition that aligns to those strategic themes. I want to invite you to take a look at that and look at some of, I'm going to go through a couple of them so that you can see how precise they are. So, for example, deliberate data-driven use of resources, specifically allocate funding, staff, and materials based on comprehensive data analysis to improve student outcomes, enhance operational efficiency, and assure quality education for all. And then I'll share with you the positive learning work environment one, just to give you a broad go from that to specifically to employees. Create and sustain respectful, collaborative, and accountable working environment that promotes learning, innovation, and professional growth. So each of these themes now have a very clear definition of what they are, so that when we're sharing this across the system, people can get an idea of what is the outcome of this work. Why do we have these particular pillars in place? The other thing is that we want it to look more like the left side of this picture than the right side of this picture. Part of what we know is to be effective in change is that we have to have cross-functional teams working together and interdependently. And so we're trying to move away from kind of these old approaches where there's a department here and a department here, and then we have to find vehicles for communication. The way that we do the scorecard and the strategic plan, it allows for those cross-functional teams to work together interdependently. This is the final version of the strategic plan in a linear format for you. So we have a mission, educate all students for success, a vision, a dynamic system of educational excellence. We have our strategic themes with their definitions, and we have a set of goals for each one of those. And if you want to just pause a minute to look at that, I'll give you a second to kind of take a look. These broad goals are 5-year goals, and they're aligned to annual measures. So on the far right side, you can see some of the measures that we are aligning to each one of these themes. Those will be helpful in letting us know, are we achieving our results, or where are we as we progress through our results? As we move into the scorecard, which is next, you'll see a slight difference. These are outcome measures. These are measures that are going to tell us whether or not we've achieved what we're trying to achieve. With the scorecard, we're going to look at both outcome measures as well as progress measures that will help us know along the way whether or not we're being successful. An organizational scorecard is basically a roadmap for annual execution of the strategic plan. It will be in the format of a summary scorecard that I'll talk to you about and share with you an example of, but it'll also be in a working format where actual teams will be working around these themes to help drive execution and monitor whether or not we're being successful. An annual scorecard looks at annual goals and annual outcomes. aligned to that strategic plan. It has to be very closely aligned. Annual measures, what measures will we use to determine if we're achieving those goals? So that'll tell us annually if we're achieving those goals, we're also achieving what we said we would do on that strategic plan. Strategic actions, these are the how. What are we doing in order to make that happen? That's a really critical part of the scorecard. And then progress measures align to those actions to help us know whether or not we did what we said we would do. It's part of the cascade of the overall organizational work that we do with the district. So you have in phase 1 your strategic plan. Now we begin to develop the district scorecard. That's where we are right now with our lead teams. It'll help us focus on operationalizing the strategic plan. It's also going to identify a strategic direction so that we know what our areas of focus are. And it will also help us align both department and school action plans as they work throughout the year. And then eventually, this cascades down to the school and department level. And then from that point on, those actions at the school level, whether it's a PLC or a grade level team, will also align to those overall goals. So you can kind of see the cascade here. We're looking at goals and measures, aligned goals and measures and actions, and continuing that engagement at the school level. And just to illustrate how this looks different from each level. So in this diagram, you see at the very top, the strategic plan broad goals. Here's for positive learning and work environment. And you can see the broad goal is to create and sustain a respectful, collaborative, and accountable working environment that promotes learning, innovation, and professional growth. But the SMART goal on the strategic, or on the scorecard, lists by the fall of 2026, will increase the district services survey mean score for timeliness from a 3.96 to a 4.06. And the measure we'll use is the district services survey. So you can clearly see the difference between that high-level goal and that broad goal. And the district services survey measures the kinds of things that we look at when we're trying to define a high-quality service organization. And then if you look at the department annual SMART goal for that same high-level broad goal, by 2026 will increase the district services survey mean for score for timeliness. Now this is a departmental mean. Their score was 4.16. So their goal will be to bring it to a 4.06. So their goal will be to bring it to a 4.11. And they will also use the same measure. So we have aligned goals, aligned measures, and then aligned to that overall strategic plan. Why a scorecard? Well, it helps communicate the strategic alignment. I think that's probably the most important part of it. It helps us know if we're doing what we said we're going to do. It also allows us to choose the measures that matter and that are uniquely yours. It helps us continue to use data to drive decision-making in the process because we have to look at whether or not something's working and then make adjustments. And it allows for accountability and transparency as we go through this process of operationalizing and implementing the strategic plan. The elements of a scorecard, it simply are these. You have your strategic themes. You have your annual goals. What are we trying to accomplish or our desired result? And our annual measures to know that. How will we achieve success? Those are our strategic actions. We'll have progress measures as well. How will we know if our strategies and ideas are working? The goals, the annual goals and the annual measures are written in pen. The strategic actions and the progress measures are written in pencil, which allows the district to be agile and make changes and adjust and adapt to what they're learning along the way. This is a view of what the working scorecard would look like, so you can kind of get an idea of how we're trying to draw that clear line across all of those levers that we talked about early on. So you have the title of the theme, you have the definition, you have the aligned superintendent goals and domain, and there's an example there. You'll have annual goals with an annual measure that aligns to a strategic plan goal. And for anybody looking at the plan, you can begin to see that at a glance. The working part of the scorecard is really the bottom half, which is those strategic actions, those progress measures, who the lead team champions are, who are champion in helping drive the work. They're not just driving the work, they're sort of cheering it on. And then those quarterly results will be stoplighted with a yellow, green, or red to let you know at a glance whether or not we're making progress around those actions and around those goals. Quarterly or midway through the year, the superintendent will present a summary scorecard to you, and it'll look something like this. I just wanted to tie it to your district. I'll show you a few examples. But in this summary scorecard, he will be able to present the goals and the measures, the results of where we're at, and a stoplight report, some way, shape, or form to let you know where we're at this point in time. And that'll be a great time to review and have good discussion around progress. These are just some examples from districts around the country that we work with. You can see here, this is a monthly presentation in their district of their scorecard. And this is how they present it at the cabinet level. So it's a summary every month they meet, and they look at those metrics and they make adjustments. And you can clearly see where their strengths are, and you can clearly see where their challenges are. This is another example that's quarterly presented to a school board. Again, very similar. On the far left is your strategic plan pillars, and then your aligned annual measures, your goals, your strategic goals, your baseline data, and then the results would be color-coded yellow, green, or red. So it's kind of a working dashboard for everybody to communicate around one or more pieces of the work in progress. That kind of concludes my presentation of the work that we've been doing. I just wanted to pause for a minute to see if there are questions that I can answer.
Do we have any questions from the board? Ms. Roberts?
So I'm looking at slide 22. So the measure for a respectful, collaborative, and accountable working environment is timeliness?
Timeliness is about service excellence. So part of what we're trying to define in service excellence is what does it mean to be respectful and collaborative? And part of that is that when you call a department and you ask for a product, or they say they're going to deliver it at a certain time, are they doing that? Are they letting you know that they're going to do that in a timely way? There's accuracy, attitude, accessibility, timeliness. There's 5 measures that we use to define service.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else? All right, that's all the questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for
very much.
inviting me.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we have some discussion items. I'll go through them one at a time. The first one is the superintendent contract. Do I have any comments from the board? Go ahead, Mr. Brian. I'm Dr. Moriarty. I'll get it.
Either way,
Third time.
we're good. Yes, in section 4, so when it says renewal options and it says for any year in which the superintendent receives a highly effective rating, is that a highly effective rating from us collectively or each of us individually?
Good question. I would say that it is a collaborative from the total score of all of the board members that a highly effective is achieved. It would not be individual, because then it wouldn't be a decision made by the board collectively. So it would be the number represented by the 5 of us and how we evaluate the superintendent.
Gotcha. And then if collaboratively we all agree he's highly effective, then it would be automatically extended by 1 year without a vote, correct?
Correct, if it's highly effective. If it's effective, we would take a vote, or we would do nothing. We have those options, and that would be discussed. But if the highly effective is achieved, it would be an automatic 1-year extension. So in essence, there would be, for this purpose, there would be a 3rd year put on each year, or 1 year that would make it a 3. So I want to say it the right way. Currently, he reached highly effective, so 1 year would be added, and he would then have a 3-year contract that extends to 2028.
Gotcha. And all of us rated him highly effective this year.
Correct.
Okay. I just wonder if in the language, it might be better to have, instead of a collaborative, highly effective average, if all of us individually rates him as highly effective, that would then trigger the 1-year automatic contract renewal.
So that's a perfectly good suggestion, but then that would mean that if 3 people or 4 people ranked him highly effective, that would make it the majority. So how do we combat that? If one person doesn't rate them highly effective, that means the 4 people who did would then, their belief or what they ranked would not be taken into consideration. It would fall to the one person who didn't make them highly effective, which then, and I want other people to speak too, that would not be collaborative. That would be one person making it so that the superintendent isn't highly effective.
Right.
So can we discuss that?
Yeah, well,
Please?
could that just trigger a vote at that point? And then, okay, so if one person does not rate him as highly effective, but 4 people do, then we vote, and obviously the 4 people who are highly effective can vote for him, and maybe the other person would have to think about what they have to do. I'm just a little uncomfortable with the automatic referral process of why it's just an automatic thing, because the board is supposed to vote on this control. So if all of us rate him as highly effective, I could see that. It's just that's the only nuance that I'm struggling with. So I didn't know if anyone had any thoughts on that
All
as
right,
well.
let's have Ms. Russell.
Yes, I just wanted to say that we are one board with one voice. 5 of us collectively make up one voice. So whatever decision's made by the board, it stands. As far as there being one person, if there's 4 that rate him highly effective and 1 that rates him effective, majority rules, and that is typically a vote, in its own right. The board in general has spoken saying that he is highly effective. When you average that out, and that is the whole purpose of us taking the time to make sure that we evaluate him correctly on all of his measures, that's each of our jobs to make sure that we do that correctly. Then they can take the average, and that gives us the score. And that score is what we all talked about before when we came up with his measurement tool.
Roberts?
So I think when we did the measurement tool, we had the measurement tool that took into account each of the 5 people's ratings in each of the different domains, and then those domains coming together and coming up with the final rating. And I believe, Brian, that if there's somebody who has an issue, any one board member or even 2 board members that have an issue with various domains, that when we're discussing the domains for the evaluation for the following year, that would be the time to, so let's say everybody else, let's say you and I are down here and we see domain 2 as an issue. And so even if the scorecard managed to get a highly effective, And even if our individual scorecards managed to get a highly effective, but in domain 2, there was an issue in domain 2 from your perspective and from my perspective, I believe that when we are addressing the measurement for the next year, the 7 domains for the next year, and we're adding that 7th thing, that would be the time that we would say, hey, still have a problem with, I know we got highly effective, I know we got all that, but in domain 2, I'd like to bring up a couple instances where I think there was an issue and either incorporate some of that language into domain 7, or at least be able to express, I think this could have been done differently. I think this would have been something that would have moved the organization forward better. And I think that's that in my head, that's the methodology to get from point A to point B. Because we already have by the same token, when you're saying one of the 5 of us doesn't rate him as highly effective, by the same token, you could do it by domains and say overall you end up with highly effective, but domain 6 is in the toilet. I mean, domain 6 is rated nothing, but it still deserves a conversation about domain 6. So still overall, which is the same thing we do for everybody else, overall you end up with a score that pushes you to a certain level, whether it's our schools, whether it's our district, whatever. It pushes you to a certain level, but it still deserves the conversation at some point for the pieces that any of us individually or any of us collectively see.
So there'd still be that conversation, though, if there
Yes.
was some areas that were lacking. Okay.
Yes, so I think what it does is it allows the mechanism for, as far as the contract goes, it allows that to continue and it allows the language for that to continue. But I believe every year it is incumbent upon us as the governance team to come to an agreement on what that domain 7 looks like and what, if there's any particular ones in measures in any of the domains that need to be refined or need to be called out, that's the time to do it when we're approving that instrument. Thank you.
Powers.
So I kind of like the superintendent to weigh in on this too, because I know one of the things that we've talked quite a bit about, and I can kind of see where Brian's coming from in his concern. I honestly don't think it will happen, that will happen, that he's not going to be highly effective. But I can see where Brian's coming from. If an individual board member has strong feelings one way or the other, those conversations are still going to happen. But one of the things that I have found in my conversations with the superintendent, that he really wants to have 5 of us supporting him. And that's really important to him moving forward. So I don't know if we have, I don't know if it spurs something different if there isn't a 5, all 5 of us agreeing, how that conversation, I don't know how to word it, what to say, what to do, because I think it's really important for us as a board to be cohesive in our leadership of the superintendent, and I think that is something that's really important to him. But I don't know how to say it or to relay that, or if it even needs to be in a contract situation. But I think that that's really important part of the discussions that we have had. I don't know if there's something.
No? Go ahead.
I think for me, with the organization, what is most important to me in a contract is the stability of the organization and the consistency in the organization. For me, as your superintendent leading the district, I want nothing more for the organization as a whole to understand that I'm here, consistent, and the way of work that we are trying to make sure is happening with consistency throughout, with the 5-year strategic plan, with all of the report cards, moving the district, continuing to keep the district at an A, making sure that we have no C schools and that we're scoring A's and B's. That comes with a lot of lift. It comes with a lot of heavy lift. It comes with a lot of accountability. It comes with a lot of responsibility. If there are members of the board that are not 100% committed, and for me as your superintendent, if I'm being clearly honest and open with you and transparent, clearly committed for me is that we are all in this together, 5-0. We support you, we want you here, and if we mark you highly effective, we believe that you deserve to stay on board. That would be a contract extension. If you don't believe in the direction that I'm bringing the district, even if it's individually, then I ask respectfully that you have a one-on-one conversation with me to let me know that you are not on board with where I'm bringing the district. If there's an area that you want me to improve upon, please tell me, because I absolutely want to know transparently. If there's a time that you want me to, that we believe collectively that we need to part ways, I ask respectively that you just let me know we want to part ways so that we can move in a different direction. You do what's best for the organization. I do what's best for me and the family. But if you are clearly behind me 100% and want no C schools, want to continue our A status, and want to continue the consistency that I believe and the momentum that I believe we've created as a school district, then I ask for that if you rate me highly effective, it comes with an automatic contract extension. Superintendents in the state of Florida are not easy to come by. And what I value as the leader of your organization and what I value with all of our people is that if we're doing right, that we show our people that we're not waffling and that we're committed. Because I can stand up and I can ask staff to move in a certain direction, but they're going to buy time if they believe that you are not behind me and committed. Give them another year, give them another 6 months, the board will move in a different direction. We can wait them out. We can wait the board out. We're getting ready to go into contract negotiations. We're getting ready to finish the budget process. There's a lot of work to be done, and I want the public and you all to know 100%, I'm not asking for more money. Now's not the time. I would never ask for more money. What I'm asking for is a commitment from the board that you believe in me and my leadership and where we're headed as a district.
So thank you for that. And I think it is a reasonable ask. You know, when we first saw the language, I think this is, you know, a 3-year contract is pretty standard. I know that's how I personally operate on a 3-year contract. I do not have an automatic renewal. But I, you know, might have that conversation with my board. But I think that it's, you know, if it's highly effective, or if there is one board member or 2 board members that have an issue, but the superintendent is still, there are other ways to go about that are outlined in the contract as well. So this does not, you know, I think this is part of the evaluation process. It rewards the superintendent for having an aggregate, highly effective score. But I will point out to the public that this by no means guarantees any, like there are outs for the board if there were a shift in who is elected or something happened or something changed. There are different avenues for the board in the contract that are spelled out if something came up and we decided to make a change. This does not tie our hands in that way. This really only, to me, speaks to that we all are in agreement that the superintendent is highly effective and he deserves to be recognized for that work over the prior year. And it will only ever be a maximum of a 3-year contract. It will not be, you know, it will not build upon. So there will only be a year extension. The contract will never be more than 3 years. So when the board does change, because every single one of us are term limited, it doesn't tie the hands of a future board in their contract negotiations as well, because they'll also have 8 years of 8-year term for their board, whatever, tenure, I guess, so.
Yeah, and I don't think of it, Marcia, as much as one board member being the issue, I think of it more as with the 7 domains, that if all of us individually had an issue with one of the domains, performance in one of those domains, you would still, the way that it's structured, you would still end up with a highly effective score. But yes, I agree with you, the conversation still needs to continue about that particular domain, about that particular, as we come up with the 7 domains every year for the next period of time, I think that's probably more likely to happen than it be one board member who's like the odd man out, who doesn't really agree with everybody else. I can see that it more likely happening as a domain-specific thing, where in one domain, you didn't receive the highly effective, yet overall, it was highly effective, and it just means some adjustments need to be made within that domain. So, thank you.
Well, and I just feel like those are conversations that, I know my ratings were very different than a lot of board members, but those are issues that I will deal with the superintendent, not necessarily, obviously, he was never rated poorly by any of us. But, you know, those are some issues that I have identified that we need to work on together, not necessarily that it's a collective issue that the entire board needs to work on. So I'm good with the language.
I just wanted to say, and I think we're wrapping this conversation up, if you're having regular discussions with superintendent, when you get to the part where you have to evaluate, there are no surprises. You have communicated effectively throughout the year, and I think we all do, so that when he does get his evaluation, he's not saying, where did this come from? He'll already know. And that's why the conversation and the communication is so important. You don't save it up to the evaluation and then go, you do it methodically throughout the year. And that's what I think is so effective about this board, because I don't think that you looked at it and said, hey, where did all this stuff come from? We had the conversations. So it's really important for us individually to have those conversations throughout the year. If something is bothering you, you must tell him. You must work it out, like you're saying, Ms. Powers. You had the conversations, and it's something the two of you. I myself have conversations on a regular basis, and there are no surprises. So that's my theme, no surprises when the evaluation comes. Thank you. Good? Okay. Moving right along. So Diane, would you put this on the agenda for next week to be voted on by the board? Thank you. Okay. Topics for October 3rd, 2025 joint meeting. Do we have any ideas for topics from anyone? Ms. Roberts?
I think that the direction that our millage rate is going and where we land with our millage rate, wherever that is, I think it creates us as an anomaly in the state of Florida, and I think it's something that as a board we should be very proud of, and I think that that's something that would be a appropriate topic for the joint meeting, because we would be pretty much the only one in the state, so I think it's something that's...
Is that agreed upon? And do I have consensus for that? Does anyone else have any recommendations for the,
The rankings of our high schools, how highly rated they are.
okay, that's good. Superintendent, do you have anything that you want to brag about? Other than we're an A district?
We're going to hold off until the state of the district this coming end of this week.
Okay,
There's lots that I'd like to brag about, but I'd really most love to brag about when we have no C schools. So we're focused, we're locked in, and we'll keep pushing forward until that happens.
okay. Are there any upcoming projects that people are not aware of that maybe we want to talk about? From Mr. Seacrest?
Yes, Mr.
Dr. Miller?
Mr. Seacrest will definitely give an update on the latest projects. we can do that. I think that's always good to do. I also do think, to Mrs. Roberts' point, we need to discuss the millage and the opportunity that we kept spending or discussing keeping spending at the 24-25 levels for all of our capital projects and things. That's very important for the public to know, because you all right now are saving upwards of $23 million in being able to do that. And so that's a big deal. And I think some time needs to be spent on that.
Okay, so I think we have 3 solid topics that we can discuss. Anyone else? No? Okay. Okay, scheduling executive sessions. We are aware that we can't have any until the hearing this evening, so I'd like to propose something a little different for next Monday. I've had requests for having an AM session, 7:30 a.m. on Monday. I believe that's the 15th. Do we have consensus on perhaps having it at 7:30 a.m.?
And how long would this be? Anybody have an idea?
Honestly, maybe an hour, if that. I mean, it's the first one, but I feel like I'm aware that a lot of provision has been made ahead of time so that when we do walk in, we're not being hit with, well, what do you want to do? We kind of have some good information how we can proceed. So I think that's going to eliminate a lot of the downtime. So I think, is an hour fair? Does that sound, Mr. Morrison, do you think an hour works?
An hour will be fine, Madam Chair.
Okay. And do we want to schedule any more at this point, or do we want to wait until the first session is over? Because
We need to get TSIA agreed upon and wrapped
Yes.
up so that you all are in a position to put an offer on the table to the union. We need to make an October 1st deadline.
and they're meeting on the 24th, I believe?
Yes, ma'am.
So that is what the discussion is going to be, the TSIA allotment, and I believe Mr. Morrison has lots of good information for us. So at that time, I guess we can discuss moving forward with any more executive sessions. How's that sound? Okay? So we will have a September 15th, 7:30 a.m. in Superintendent's Boardroom? Okay. Coffee?
Should we just go ahead and put it on the calendar for the next Monday as well, just so that we, in case there is additional information or
Okay,
questions? Because I
okay.
don't want to miss, if we cancel it, that's fine, but
Okay.
we may want to just put it on the calendar, because I don't want to get to then trying to meet before the 24th.
Okay, so we'll do 2 sessions, consecutive Mondays, 7:30 a.m.
And staff is prepared to present MCEA and AFSMI.
Okay.
We'll do both in an hour
Okay.
and be concise.
Okay, sounds good.
Let me just say, I like the morning session, so I even have a conflict, but I'm going to move it. But
Okay.
I like the morning sessions for some of us working people, so I appreciate that,
Well,
Madam Chair.
that was how it was presented, and frankly, I'm the most flexible because I'm retired, if you will, so I want everyone to feel accommodated. So if we can move to the 7:30 a.m., then that would be wonderful, and it frees up another evening for us during the week.
Wonderful.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you, everyone. That was very pleasant. Okay, so now we're going to go on to school board policies. Do I have any members of the audience who would like to say anything about any of these policies? Okay, so, and do I go over each one individually, or didn't? Do we have any questions on any of these board policies? Yes.
I do on policy number 8210. I think it should, under length of the standard school year, so we have the language in the second paragraph that talks about the MCA negotiated collective bargaining agreement. I think less said is better, so in the length of the standard school year, I think that should just say the school year consists of 180 days of, a typical school year consists of 180 days of class for students, knowing that sometimes we don't have a full 180 days because we have the minutes, and drop out that part about the 196 days of employment. The opening date for schools in the district may not be earlier than August 10th is in statute, so that if that got changed by the legislature and if that was changed, then obviously we would be following the law. I don't believe that the first semester ending prior to the winter vacation is in statute. So I think that that C should just be the school year shall be divided into 2 semesters approximately equal in length. If the calendar that we get has it that way, et cetera, that's fine, but I would hate for us to be bound by a policy where we have to end by a certain date because it's in a policy where it might not work out calendar-wise. So those are my 3 suggestions for this policy, adding the word typical in A, deleting the and 196 days, and deleting the with the first semester ending prior to winter vacation.
Discussion on that? Is everyone all right with that? Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Any of the other policies? Okay. Now we're open to the board. Do I have any announcements from anyone that you would like to share? Okay, seeing none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
And we have only 11 minutes. 8 minutes? Yeah.
Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everybody to the School Board of the Martin County Special School Board meeting trim. I'd like to call this meeting to order and ask for approval of the agenda and addendum.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Roberts, a second by Ms. Powers. All those in favor? Aye. So approval of final budget amendments for fiscal year ended June 30th, 2025. Mr. Carter Morrison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What you have before you is the results of the final operations of the 24-25 school year and the budget amendments there attached thereto.
Move approval.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Roberts, a second by Ms. Powers. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries unanimously. We now have the report of financial data to the Commissioner of Education, ESE 348, for fiscal year 24-25. Mr. Carter Morrison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What you have before you is a compliance document with the superintendent's annual financial report that is required to be submitted to the Department of Education by September the 11th of this year. Subsequent to that, we'll be working on the annual comprehensive financial report, which may include any audit adjustments or any adjustments that we'll make subsequent to the superintendent's annual financial report. That will be due out sometime in December or so forth. But today, before you, you have the compliance document that the Department of Education needs.
Thank you.
Move approval of ESC 348.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Roberts, a second by Dr. Moriarty. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries unanimously. We will now recess special meeting to conduct public hearing on millage rates and budget. Do I have anybody from the audience who would like to comment? Seeing none, we will now have a public hearing to adopt 2025-26 final millage rates and budget, discuss the millage and budget for fiscal year 25-26, including the rollback rate. Mr. Carter Morrison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me just tee up the presentation. Will the technician in the room please display on the, thank you. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, board members. Good evening. This is the final hearing in the series of 2 hearings that is required by Florida Statute 200, whereby we discuss the proposed millage rate and budget for fiscal year 25-26. Before you on the slides, you will see what we've done is we've did a comparison for you of the adopted 24-25 millage rate, which is at 5.75 mils. On August the 5th, at the first public hearing, the board adopted tentatively a 5.720 mils. And as board members have discussed, we are poised now to implement the superintendent's recommendation of a millage rate of 5.177 mils, which is recommended, which is 9.96% less than the 24-25 adopted millage rate. In comparison to the rollback rate, the millage rate of 5.177 mils is actually lower than the rollback rate by 1.47%, which is 0.0777 mils less than the rollback rate, which is the superintendent's recommendation. As previously discussed, we have gone in and we have cut the budget by about $23 million in capital, taking great pains to ensure that we have not disturbed or harmed any named projects in the 5-year capital plan. That will be coming to you hopefully on September 16th. We're doing some work behind the scenes to just clean up a few things. Moving on to the proposed 25-26 budget. Before you at your places, you should have a copy of this year's 25-26 beginning budget book. In the budget book, on page 23, just to navigate the book a little bit, you'll find information related to the general fund. Debt service on page 207, capital budget on page 211, food service on 219, federal funds on page 225, extended day at on page 233 page 233, for a total budget contained in the resolution that is forthcoming of $588,981,339. With that, Madam Chair, I think it would be appropriate at this time to sound the halls for any public input on the final millage rate and budget as proposed.
Do I have anybody from the audience? I do not. So now we're moving on to approval of superintendent's authorization and resolutions. Authorization to ensure compliance with truth and millage. Carter Morrison.
Yes, Madam Chair, what that is to make sure that we will be then sending into the Department of Revenues, all documentation that has been advertised and adopted by the board to ensure that we're in compliance with Florida Statute 200, as well as complying with the Florida Department of Education budget checklist and the checklist requirements that they have with respect to this evening's proceedings on the budget and trim process.
Roberts.
Move approval of 6.01.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Roberts, a second by Ms. Powers. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to Resolution 2026-04, adoption of final millage rates for fiscal year 25-26, ESC 524. Carter Morrison.
Yes, as previously discussed, the board is poised to implement, particularly in the capital area, 0.95 mils, which is unprecedented, and reduces our budget to live within our means in comparison to last year's proceeds. So we recommend the approval of the resolution 2025-26, the ESC 524 document.
Move approval of item 6.02.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Powers, a second by Dr. Moriarty. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries unanimously. 6.03, Resolution 2026-05, adoption of final budget for fiscal year 2025-26, and the FLDOE District Summary Budget, Form ESE 139. Carter Morrison.
Yes, Madam Chair, before you, again, at your places, you will find a detailed document, our budget book for 25-26, containing revenues and expenditures by fund, an entirety and revamping of the budget book, which adds in FTE data. It adds in a lot of data that is very useful for making information going forward, and the initial budgets as will be approved by the board tonight. And therefore, we recommend the superintendent's recommendation to adopt the budget.
I move to approve 2026-05.
Second.
Ms. Roberts has,
So in the resolution, Carter, you're ending with $339. Should that be $339 or $399?
It's $339.
Okay, because
On
in
the
your,
PowerPoint, it's $399.
yeah, okay,
Yes.
just so we have the right one. Thank you.
Yes.
okay, I had a motion by Dr. Moriarty, a second by Ms. Powers. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries unanimously. So I'm adjourning this meeting on the 2025-26 final millage rate and budget, and reconvene regular school board meeting.
Madam Chair, if I may?
Yes.
Thank you for recognizing me. I just want to give thanks to staff who have participated in this long journey of preparing the budget, the millage rates. There's a lot of hard work that took place, late nights, weekends. I want to thank everybody from the facilities team in particular when we went through and was able to reduce our budget to try to live within our means. I would be remiss if I did not give thanks to everybody who participated. Thank you.
And thank you. We appreciate it.
I'd like to say thank you as well. I know that these are not easy times for the public that we serve, and I really appreciate everyone tightening our belt at the school district and making the right decisions for all the people that we serve in our community. So thank you all very, very much.
And the community is thankful as well. I'm getting lots of input, thanking, how are you doing it? How come the district can do it, but nobody else can? And I just say, well, Carter.
We have amazing people.
Yes, everyone, thank you. Not minimizing anyone.
I'd also like to chime in and say that just for the public, for them to be aware that, because some of the feedback I've heard, that this does not affect the operating budget. So the pieces of the budget that have to do with services to students, running the schools, teacher salaries, all of those pieces are still intact. the way that the formula for the state has come out in the FEFP, those pieces have stayed the same. And so those are still at the high level, the highest level that the state is allowing those to be. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on, approval of Resolution 26-03 for 2025-2026 tax anticipation note. Approval of resolution authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $32 million in tax anticipation notes. Carter Morrison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just like to recognize the presence of Ms. Laura Howe from PFM Asset Management and your bond counsel, Mr. Ritesh Patel from Neighbors Giblin. The district experiences cash flow variations due to the time when we levy the taxes not received until November. That's when we get the bulk of it. And so we kind of need that cash flow to bridge between the time that because we have continuing operating expenses such as payroll, et cetera. And until we can get those tax revenues in November, this $32 million will bridge that divide. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
I move approval of item 7.01.
Second?
I have a motion by Ms. Powers, a second by Ms. Russell. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries unanimously. And if we have no further discussion, I'd like to adjourn this meeting.